September 13th, 2007, the Palace Station Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. An armed robbery is reported to have taken place in room 1203. But what would make this robbery different? What would make the headlines go nuclear? Is that the person at the center of it all was none other than O.J. Simpson. O.J. and an accomplice, C.J. Stewart, would say that this was no robbery. It was a recovery of some of O.J.'s stolen treasures. The victims would say they were set up, and it was all captured on tape. So was this a case of Simpson and his pals just trying to reclaim some of O.J.'s memorabilia? Or a full-fledged armed robbery complete with guns and a kidnapping?
Robbery detectives were dispatched to the hotel where Mr. Simpson was staying. He was taken into custody. He cooperated, and it was without incident.
The station actually heard about the robbery before it became news.
Nearly 12 years after beating a double murder rap, O.J. Simpson is back in handcuffs, once again facing serious charges.
Our station got a phone call from a guy named Bruce Fromong, and he told the assignment editor at the time, "I was just robbed by O.J. Simpson." And the assignment editor was like, "Yeah, right." The area around Palace Station was seedy, the hotel itself was seedy, and so for someone to summon you to a business meeting in a hotel room there, alarm bells, red flags.
911, what is your emergency?
Yeah, we are just robbed at gunpoint by O.J. Simpson. Can you send the police here, please?
When the call first came in, my supervisor actually called my partner and said, "Hey, we need you guys to head down to the Palace Station." And ultimately, the conversation led down to the supervisor telling Eddie, "And don't tell me shut up, or just listen to what I'm going to say." And of course, he explains to Eddie that it's an armed robbery reported at the Palace Station, and O.J. Simpson's the suspect. And of course, Eddie's instant response is, "No, just shut up, no way."
The media, for whatever reason, seem to feel they need O.J. stories, and they're going to keep it going. We'll see real soon how they take what was something as simple as cursing some guys out, and it's going to be the big news for unfortunately maybe weeks or months.
Thank you.
Welcome back to State Nevada versus Simpson and Stewart, and we are actually going to begin the trial.
Outside, it was a circus. The entire parking lot was full of every satellite camera truck you could ever imagine. There were helicopters flying overhead. There were people running around in chicken suits outside, holding signs with the free OJ07. Jimmy Kimmel, he had one of his characters come out and kind of harass the attorneys involved in the case.
There hasn't been anything like that since OJ.
We're now going to move into opening statements. The state goes first.
The scariest thing, okay, scarier than bad evidence, is a prosecutor who knows how to try a case. Mr. Roger and Mr. Owens, they were very experienced prosecutors. They weren't showmen. They didn't do the show. Although I will give them credit, they were very prepared. They were extremely prepared.
Ladies and gentlemen, you will hear evidence from witnesses, and you will hear evidence that will make you witnesses of a sort in this case. You will see video of some of the events that transpired on that day, and you will hear audio of that particular event. And that audio will show threats, it will show force, it will show demands, and it will show the taking of property from the victims in this case, Mr. Fromong and Mr. Beardsley.
When OJ got popped in 2007, Yale called me and said, "Hey, Gabe, how would you like to be famous?" I said, "I don't know, famous for what?" And he says, "How would you like to help me represent OJ?" And I said, "Sure."
From the minute this event was conceived of by Tom Riccio until today and tomorrow and the next day and during this trial, it is about the amount of money that these individuals are trying to make off of the back of O.J. Simpson. And you could think whatever you want about his past, and you've all agreed as jurors to ignore it. This is a case about recovering photographs, personal mementos, is not about what occurred in California.
Did not, could not, and would not have committed this crime.
It all began in January. On one side, the state.
The jury deserves to get the truth.
Confident in its case, alleging football great O.J. Simpson brutally murdered his ex-wife and a friend of hers. On the other side, O.J. and his defense team.
I don't think they can stand the truth.
Equally confident in their ability to create reasonable doubt.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson.
As we indicated to you at the beginning of this case, that is a different case. Those are different facts. That is not your concern or our concern in this trial. But the effect of that judgment is something that you may consider in assessing what you have to do in this case.
I began to realize that, yes, it was going to be extremely difficult to get a jury in Nevada that was going to give OJ a fair shake.
We were all working together on the same big story, and the common thread just kept coming back to he's never been held accountable for crimes we think he's committed. This is going to be it. This is going to be our chance.
You still in contact with OJ? And I said no right now. He says don't call OJ up because his stuff's stolen from his trophy room.
So what did you do then?
I called OJ up.
There were several questions to be answered during the O.J. Simpson trial in Nevada. Did a crime even take place? Were the secret recordings made by middleman Tom Riccio authentic? Did O.J. ever know there would be guns involved? And was this all just one big con? But the biggest question, could the jury actually separate this O.J. Simpson armed robbery trial from the O.J. Simpson murder trial? Would it be possible for someone as well known as the Juice to actually get a fair shake?
You do solemnly swear the testimony about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please have a seat.
I was the guy that was robbed in the hotel room by O.J. Simpson.
I believe O.J. and I were good friends. I mean, he was a good man to me, and we were personal friends. It wasn't just a business arrangement.
The way this came about is I had gotten a call from a gentleman that had bought memorabilia from me in the past, Alfred Beardsley. He was kind of an O.J. groupie, but he came to me and he said, "Hey, I know someone that wants to buy at least $100,000 worth of O.J. Simpson memorabilia."
You possessed on September 13th, 2007, certain memorabilia. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Will you describe that memorabilia for us?
There were approximately 700 to 800 items in the room that night. All those items belonged to me. Of those items, approximately 12 or 13 items at one time had belonged to Mr. Simpson.
Did you steal any of these items from defendant Simpson?
No, sir, I did not.
You know, I hope that one thing that people take away from this, they realize that I didn't steal anything from O.J. And O.J. during the parole hearing, even said, no, I had never stolen anything from O.J.
You became aware of where the location was going to be?
Yes, sir.
Where was the location?
Palace Station.
I said, that's fine. You know, no problem. It's a casino in one of the rooms. You know, it's not like we're meeting in a parking lot or something like that, because I would have never have agreed to it.
The doors burst open, and then people started rushing in. There was somebody in the room that was saying, put the gun down, put the gun down.
Who was saying put the gun down?
I don't know exactly who said that.
O.J. Simpson did not have a gun that day.
We were just robbed at gunpoint by O.J. Simpson. Can you send police here, please?
Where are you?
Palace Station Hotel in Las Vegas.
Did you say put the gun down?
No, sir.
Did you hear Mr. Beardsley say put the gun down?
No, no, sir.
Okay. Is it your claim that one of the other individuals who had come into the room said put the gun down?
Besides Mr. Simpson, sir?
Well, Mr. Simpson or any of the other individuals?
Someone said it in that room, sir.
McClinton, though, this is the one. Michael McClinton walks up to me like a thug, holds his gun out sideways. He comes up, puts his gun about 16 to 18 inches in my face, says, I would kill you.
You okay?
You okay?
Yeah.
You want to take a break, Judge? I'm fine with taking a break.
I had the 4 heart attacks. I had what they call the widowmaker. So my health wasn't great. It was okay. And towards the end of the day, it just took a toll on me.
Mr. Fromog, who was my witness during my cross-examination of him, said, I don't feel very well, and he thought he was having a heart attack. I don't know if he did or not, but he thought he was having a heart attack. So they wheeled him out on a stretcher.
And they called the medics. I went out into the hallway and they laid me down, and medics came. And one of the things that really got me afterwards, because there was no need to do this, but OJ came out to check on me. He came to my son and said, how's your dad doing? Is he going to be okay?
When you said somebody set me up, is that because you felt that somebody had either fooled you, lied to you, didn't tell you the truth about this meeting? That's what set you up, man, right?
I believe I was brought there on false pretenses.
Initially, we went to where the victims were, Bruce Fromong and Alfred Beardsley.
You said you were able to get a recorded statement from Mr. Fromong.
Yes, sir, we did.
What happened then?
During the statement, some of the details it didn't make sense. So midway through the statement, I asked Detective Leneve to go upstairs to surveillance to see if he could try to figure out, make heads or tails out of what we were being told.
We had multiple victims, multiple suspects, so we asked for more detectives from our squad to respond.
I made contact with Detective Leneve, and he had isolated footage, and he had actually stopped the frame on the subjects actually entering the Palace Station.
And what was your thought at that point?
Well, I recognized Mr. Simpson instantly, and suddenly it started getting a little bit of credit of what he was saying.
You contacted Mr. Richo, and describe his demeanor. How did he seem to you?
At the time I contacted him, he was very interested in telling me a long, drawn-out story. However, at the time, I just didn't have time. I just needed what was going on.
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to judge you to see if you're a victim or if you had prior knowledge of this incident.
I had prior knowledge, but I'm not a victim. I had prior knowledge of everything.
Before it happened, you knew this was going to happen?
Not. The only thing I didn't know is that they were going to come in with guns and all that crap.
But you knew they were going to take all the property?
Hell yeah, I knew it all. I guess my role would be, I was a memorabilia dealer, and a guy calls me and says, hey, I saw you on TV with Nicole Smith's diary, and I have something even more exciting. Oh, what's that? He goes, I have O.J. Simpson's personal mementos.
Well, my concern was that he had actually set it up, that he was there, he seemed like the middleman for it.
This thing, you never would have heard about it if it wasn't for Fromong. He's the one that called the police the minute O.J. was out the door and then said that I did it. That guy's a snake.
Tom Riccio, he's a shady character.
In searching the room, it became clear a few days later that we missed a digital recorder that was placed in the room by Tom Riccio before the robbery had occurred.
What happened on Sunday the 17th?
TMZ released a small segment of audio that sounded like what we had described to us occurred at the Palace Station.
Harvey Levin was asking me for him. He said, I'm starting this new show called I want to get syndicated. And I'm like, I think they're worth, I first asked them for a couple of million. I was trying to get 100,000.
You became aware of where law enforcement was actually being taped, unbeknownst to law enforcement.
That's correct.
That's a fair statement, correct?
Yes, sir.
Next to Perkins, he says, "This is great." Yeah. John said, he's like, yeah, California can't get him. Now we'll be able to get him. And then in parentheses, laughing. You certainly wouldn't have put anything on this piece of paper that was inaccurate. Would you have, Detective Caldwell?
No, sir.
I got texts from a guy named Al Beardsley. And he told me he had this O.J. Simpson stuff. He just came right out and said it was stolen from O.J.'s room. He said, don't call O.J. up because this stuff's stolen from his trophy room.
So what did you do then?
I called O.J. up.
Okay.
It was O.J.'s stuff. He confirmed it was his stuff. He wanted it back bad. It seemed like the right thing to do.
I took Riccio out to my truck. He says, well, what do you got here? And he looks through it all and he says, do you have any personal O.J. Simpson memorabilia? And I said, no, not really. I said, there's a couple pieces that at one time had belonged to O.J., but, this is all mine. He said, well, let's go ahead and get a bellman out here and we'll take the stuff upstairs.
We go to my room and I asked them to spread all the stuff out on the bed.
Okay, eventually they arrived.
Eventually they told me we're at the casino and we're here now.
What happened next?
I told them they're in the room. The stuff that I told you that they have is on my bed. And hopefully it's yours. And let's do there what we plan to do.
They followed me to the room. I put my key in the door, opened the door up. They sort of pushed me out of the way. OJ went in first, and the whole gang just kept going in. I was at the end.
They had boxes, and they grabbed pillowcases off the bed and started just packing it all up.
OJ said, do you think you could get some heat?
As Tom Riccio, the middleman, finished his testimony at the start of week 2, the jury was about to be introduced to a whole new character, Alfred Beardsley, an OJ superfan. It was Beardsley who set the whole criminal act in motion with a call to Tom Riccio and a plot to sell some memorabilia to the highest Vegas bidder. It turns out Beardsley had gotten his hands on some of OJ's most prized possessions, and he wanted to make some money. Beardsley decided to make the trip to Vegas to broker the sale himself, a trip that would land him in jail thanks to a parole violation. He was followed on the stand by all the others, and one by one, in search of a better deal, OJ's former friends and acquaintances flipped on him.
We were just robbed at gunpoint by O.J. Simpson.
So I went to go interview Riccio in the room, and my interview lasted, it was very short. Mr. Riccio upset me with just his inability to provide me basic facts, and he actually ended up in handcuffs. I'm not saying that you're going to jail, okay? However, I'm going to read your rights. I want to make sure you understand your rights.
Why? What did I do?
Thomas, from the outside looking in, you arranged and ultimately facilitated a robbery with a deadly weapon. Hold on, Thomas. Stop. The only reason he didn't go to jail was because in talking to one of the prosecutors, he said, hey, Riccio might make a better witness at this point.
You know what? They had my phone for a while, for 6 or 7 hours. And they did give me my phone back later. Half the calls were from OJ crying. Tom, they're saying I broke into your room and robbed you. You got to set the record straight. I'm like, how the hell am I going to do that?
When I finished my interview with Bruce Fromong, Alfred Beardsley's interview was being completed as well. We compared notes on those 2 interviews, and those 2 interviews were consistent.
Has O.J. Simpson ever asked you to lie about the events that occurred in the Palace Station?
No.
Well, first of all, let's talk about your memory. You've listened to all the tapes, correct?
I brushed up on my memory of the tapes,
Okay.
yes.
And after listening to the tapes, do you ever hear anybody mention the word gun?
No,
Is it
I haven't.
anywhere in the tape?
I tried to listen for that. I didn't hear the word gun, no. But the gun was there.
I think it was doctored to make it a little more sensational. I won't say things were added. Nothing was added. Everything that was in there was said, but they had been placed into other areas and things had been taken out.
What did the defendant say about the memorabilia?
He said that there was a bunch of fellas in town that have $100,000 worth of his merchandise that belonged to him that was taken from a long time ago.
Did there come a point in time when someone had a gun?
Yes.
Who had the gun?
The bald-headed black fella.
That was one of the individuals who you had never met before?
Yes, sir. They're yelling and screaming, and someone says, put the gun away.
Who said put the gun away?
I think it was Mr. Simpson.
When you arrived at Defendant Simpson's room, did the defendant say anything when he entered the room?
He said, I'm going to need a bail bondsman. He says, I up. I was just very upset with him. I said, OJ, there were guns, and these guys had guns. And
what was the defendant's response?
He said there were no guns.
OJ was telling me he didn't know those guys had guns. And I didn't know if OJ didn't have a gun. I didn't know if he knew the guys had. So I was going to keep it on the down low. But then after they arrested him, I'm figuring, you know what? There's nothing in the tapes that says that OJ knew he had the gun. Maybe this will even help him.
What transpired between yourself and Spencer and Mr. Simpson in that room after Richo and Katz left?
OJ said, hey man, there's some people in town that stole some things that belong to me, and I need to get them back. I need somebody to watch my back. Can you watch my back? And I said, no problem. I got your back, Juice.
What did he say?
He said, okay, do you think you could get some heat? My friend Spencer spoke up and said, hey man, no problem. I got plenty of heat. I'm licensed to carry a gun.
What did Mr. Simpson say?
He said, yeah, man, I just need you all to bring the guns, but, you don't have to take them out. But right before we went in the room, OJ told Spencer to take the gun out and put it in his hand.
What were you thinking at that point?
Man, this is going to be a robbery.
What was Mr. Simpson doing about the gun?
He told him, man, put that down, put that gun down. I'm telling you now, I'm telling the truth, but I'm not going to go to jail for OJ.
Mr. Alexander, you recall during the same transcript that Mr. Owens just showed you that I asked you the following question.
Do we have a page, Mr. Goldman?
Yes, page 32, line 15. Sir.
Can you back away from me and let me read this because I don't
No,
like
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it the same way Mr. Owens did it.
Well, yeah, well,
we're going to do it the exact same way, sir.
Yelling in my ear. He did this before, and I don't like it. Step back, please.
We all wondered where he found these guys. It was as if the Keystone Cops had turned into criminals.
I had to go back to the court and sign some paperwork. And as he walked out, I had just come out of the elevator, so I was going down to work, and we passed each other. The general gist of the conversation is, Bruce, I'm sorry. This should never have happened, and I'm sorry.
You're presently incarcerated in California.
Correct.
And that's for a parole violation?
That's correct.
I knew who Beardsley was. I had done a deal with him in the past that went bad, and I know he's an overbearing jerk, to put it nicely. And I know he was a psychotic OJ fanatic. And I figured, this could go bad. And that's why I had the tape there.
Did you have any concerns about conducting this transaction in a hotel room?
I had, that hotel room, yes, I just had bad vibes about the room. Ricio's conduct, I was getting bad vibes about him.
You feel that Mr. Riccio set you up?
Well, I know he set me up, and I believe that he was targeted by this con man in order for this man to make quite a bit of money, which he has done nothing but make money for the last year.
As you were walking down to room 1203, was there any conversation with Mr. Simpson?
When we finally approached the door, Mr. Simpson asked me to show my weapon and look menacing. That's when we're walking right through the door.
One of the things that I think is so paramount about this case is realizing how small that room was. To have that many grown adults in that room and to think that anybody in that room was not aware of a firearm being brandished is ridiculous. It's offensive to even imply that somebody in that room did not know there were guns.
He repeatedly said there were no guns.
You knew differently, didn't you?
Yeah, I knew differently because I had a gun.
I kept that thing in my pocket till we got inside that room. That was a statement by you about something else other than a gun. Yeah, don't look at them, look at me.
I'm looking at you, Brasso.
Did Mr. McClinton ask you for money?
Yes,
What did he ask you for?
$50,000.
More twists and turns and contradictions in the third and final week of the O.J. Simpson robbery trial. Michael Spencer McClinton, the man heard on Riccio's tape drawing his gun in room 1203, returned to the stand for cross-examination and would contradict O.J.'s claims about not knowing there were weapons in the room. To add weight to his testimony, McClinton, like Riccio, secretly recorded O.J. at a party at the Palms Hotel after the incident, where O.J. seemed to indicate that he knew guns were drawn. But first, Judge Glass reaches her most animated and frustrated point in the proceedings.
Listen, it does not matter to me what you heard or what you heard or what anybody heard. The only issue that I see here now, and I'm trying to get this case back on track because I'm surprised you haven't seen my head spin around and fire come out of my mouth at this point in this trial.
And I'm trying to figure out what story to tell. Paul is really said a strong arm robbery. They came in with they gave me girls are blaze, you know? You think I made the major point? Because that's what they want. Oh yeah, they would love to say, okay.
Good morning, guy. How you doing today?
Hey, how are you?
Good. All's well?
You don't carry a gun in your pocket.
My gun was holstered.
Okay. You were talking about something else when you made that statement. I kept that thing in my pocket till we got inside that room. That was a statement by you about something else other than a gun. Yeah, don't look at them, look at me.
I'm looking at you, Brasso.
Then answer the question.
I'm just trying, I'm thinking here.
When the officer was asking you why you're bringing guns, okay, it wasn't common knowledge enough for you to tell him that O.J. told you that.
It may have slipped my mind, but Mr. Simpson knew I had a gun.
Okay, so
he read my concealed weapons permit and he knew I had a gun.
You've testified previously that you never told the police originally that he asked you to bring guns.
That's true.
That's all I have. No, I thought that was the best information that I got out of the whole trial in cross-examination was that one question that sort of had O.J. walking back there and saying, I didn't know there were guns.
Mr. Beardsley, tell us the statements that you were making to the media on the night of the 13th and on the 14th.
The best of my recollection, Mr. Glanner, I believe it was a setup because of Mr. Ricio's conduct and things he was saying in the room.
So one of you guys set me up. I don't know who it is, or, and they're both, oh, no, we're not, you're not. And I knew, it had been a setup.
They asked O.J., did Tom Riccio set you up? And O.J. says, no, I'm friends with Tom Riccio. This was a self-organized sting operation. This was more my idea. This is O.J. talking.
Basically, Mr. Simpson was yelling and showing his disgust at the fact that, he thought that this was stolen from him
and how they could do it, thought that they were friends at one point in time, and pretty disturbed that it was these gentlemen that were having to be in that room with the merchandise.
I could see how could you do this to me being a key factor rather than the stuff itself. That wasn't as important to the O.J. I knew.
The case was already, by the time OJ's going to testify, we had already seen the state's case. He was sinking fast. There was only one way to go, which was up, and OJ didn't testify. I thought it was a very important decision. I didn't make it. I told him he needed to testify. That was the most confrontational moment I had with Yale in the case.
Did you see Walter Alexander and Michael McClinton at your party at Mr. Stewart's on September 14, 2007?
Yes.
Did Mr. McClinton ask you for money?
Yes.
What did he ask you for?
$50,000.
What were they asking for the $50,000 for?
The money was for, if any trouble came down, not to make any deals to get them out of trouble.
What did you feel?
I felt threatened.
Did you tell him that you were going to take the money you would have given him for not testifying and use it to put a contract on Mr. Alexander's life?
It's ridiculous.
Did you say that?
Of course not.
You didn't tell Mr. Stewart that?
Absolutely not.
Did you say he don't need to live?
No, absolutely not.
Who was the most important witness in the OJ case? OJ not testifying.
We don't want people going into rooms with guns to take property. That is robbery.
Defendants rise. Please read the verdicts out loud.
Although the trial was expected to last 4 to 5 weeks, the jury got the case in just 3. They were mostly white and mostly female, and it was up to them to sort through all of the contradictory witness statements and a hodgepodge of motives. Still, the most important question remained. Could O.J. Simpson get a fair trial in this courtroom, or any courtroom? Or would his 1995 murder acquittal come into play, swaying the jury as a wrong that had to be made right?
Mr. Roger, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You may proceed.
When people come together to commit crimes, they don't always commit the same acts together. There may be one who's carrying a gun. There may be the ringmaster who is yelling, "Don't let anybody out of here." But when there is that agreement to commit a crime, and they all agree to it, they are all equally responsible for the acts of the other. We don't want people going into rooms with guns to take property. That is robbery.
This case has taken on a life of its own because Mr. Simpson's involved. And you know that. I know that. He has always been the target of this investigation and nothing else. Was his intent to commit a crime, or was his intent to recover property that was stolen from him years prior? Now, I will be the first to tell you that doing this on your own, going into a room, trying to recover your own stolen property, is not right. It's just not. But being stupid and being frustrated is not being a crook.
This was not a setup. I didn't know it was going to happen. Believe me when I tell you, if I knew guns were going to be there, I wouldn't be there. Did I think something might happen, something totally different? Maybe with Al Beardsley going nuts or something? Maybe. That's the main reason why I had the recorder there, mainly for Al Beardsley, not for OJ.
Folks, I told you in the very, very beginning, I was going to ask you to find him not guilty. He is not guilty.
Well, I think OJ's like the eternal optimist when it comes to that kind of stuff. It may have gone in one ear and out the other. He was holding out hope.
Defendants rise.
District Court, Clark County, Nevada. The state of Nevada plaintiff versus Orenthal James Simpson, defendant. Verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, as follows. Count 1, conspiracy to commit a crime. Guilty. Count 2, conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Guilty. Count 3, conspiracy to commit robbery. Guilty.
The jury was very, let's say, prejudiced against O.J., regardless of what they may have said.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes your jury service.
They waited until October 3rd because I think they reached their verdict before then. But they wanted it to be then because that was the anniversary date of the L.A. verdict. Thought in my head, you know, this jury had it out for him from the beginning.
I was really disappointed. I really was. I just didn't think that the jury selection process went as well as it should have gone.
When they gave the verdict, you know, I agreed with it, but it wasn't the verdict that bothered me. Because as the victim, I have input, and I told them for O.J., it should be 1 to 3 years.
I never really thought that it was entirely possible for O.J. Simpson to get a fair trial. There's no juror in Las Vegas or anywhere else in the country that didn't know who he was, hadn't heard about the murder trial. You can't not have that in your mind.
There's really no reason to take him into custody pending sentence.
Thank you. That motion's denied.
There certainly are a lot of people who think that perhaps that jury was trying to deliver the justice that they didn't think happened in his original trial. I think if O.J. Simpson was not O.J. Simpson and he was fill in the blank of some name nobody had ever heard of, I doubt he would have gotten the sentence that he did.
Spent 9 years making no excuses about anything. I am sorry.
Hey, Bruce, I've owed you a call for a while.
In a town like Vegas, numbers mean everything. But on this day, 13 was unlucky for O.J. The crime had taken place on the 13th of September, 2007, and it took just 13 hours for the jury to find both Simpson and his accomplice, Clarence Stewart, guilty on all counts. A verdict delivered 13 years to the day that O.J. was found not guilty of murdering his ex-wife, Nicole, and her friend, Ron Goldman.
We're back on the record in state of Nevada versus Simpson and Stewart.
There's one person who was the ringleader, so to speak, in this case, and that was Mr. Simpson. He was the one who wanted to get this property. And despite the fact that he had the able assistance of a very bright lawyer named Yale Galanter, he chose to use force and violence to take this property.
As the court is aware, my biggest concern throughout this case has been payback or retribution. My client's acts were beyond stupid. I truly believe, Your Honor, that Mr. Simpson's intent was not to cause harm. And we know from public statements from Mr. Beardsley and Mr. Furlong that they feel the same way. And I submit to the court that the court should be lenient, sentence Mr. Simpson at the bottom of the range, the 6 years.
So now, Mr. Simpson, go ahead and stand.
Yes, Your Honor, I stand before you today, sorry, somewhat confused. I feel like apologetic to the people of the state of Nevada. You know, I wasn't there to hurt anybody. I just wanted my personal things, and I realized I was stupid of me. I am sorry. I didn't mean to steal anything from anybody, and I didn't know I was doing anything illegal. I thought I was confronting friends and retrieving my property. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all of it.
I can say the O.J. that I knew at that time would not surprise me that he would befriend people who were maybe what we'd call characters. He did. He was a very generous man, and he gave a lot to many of his friends. I could see the possibility that he would get involved with people without really checking them out very well.
Earlier in this case, at a bail hearing, I said to Mr. Simpson, I didn't know if he was arrogant or ignorant or both. And during the trial and through this proceeding, I got the answer, and it was both. It was clear to the court that you believed you could do in Las Vegas what you couldn't do elsewhere. You could get your stuff back. I have to tell you now, it was much more than stupidity. I'm not here to try and cause any retribution or any payback for anything else. I want that to be perfectly clear to everyone.
Judge Glass starts out. I want it to be made clear that this has nothing to do with the 95 murder trial. Well, if it has nothing to do with it, then why even bring it up?
I'm going to sentence you as follows. Count 1, conspiracy to commit a crime, 1 year in the county jail. Count 2, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, a minimum term of 12 months, max term of 48 months in the Nevada Department of Corrections. Count 3, conspiracy to commit robbery, a minimum term of 12 months, max term of 48 months in the Nevada Department of Corrections.
What my take on the sentencing was did it surprise me? No. Judge Glass had a reputation for being a no-nonsense, tough judge. She had been tough throughout the whole trial.
If you're asking me my opinion on if the sentence was fair, my answer is yes. And my answer is yes because that's the justice system we have.
She could have given him more time, but she gave him almost as much as she could give him based on what he was found guilty of.
My experience with him is that he's like my best friend and my rock.
I've come here, I've spent 9 years making no excuses about anything. I am sorry that things turned out the way they did. I had no intent to commit a crime.
He made a mistake. You know, he was misled, and he had apologized.
This is a good man. He made a mistake. And if he called me tomorrow and said, Bruce, I'm getting out, will you pick me up? Juice, I'll be here tomorrow for you. I mean that, though.
Mr. Simpson, I do vote to grant parole.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A few days after he was paroled, I got a phone call from OJ.
Hey, Bruce, I've owed you a call for a while. I wanted to call, but I finally got here. I'm kind of comfortable. Hey, man, I can't thank you enough for showing that friendship, being honest at that parole hearing. It really, really was great. It did me a lot of good in my heart. I don't care about the parole board, but in my heart, it did me a lot of good. I don't know, I did a little signing for a few things because I had to pay off a debt to my lawyer for the Goldman as usual. But outside of that, I'm kind of laying low for a while. I'll try to get you a little later, and when I get a cell phone, I'll let you know. All right, man. God bless you and the family. Please say hello to them for me. And love you, buddy. You take care. Adios.
In November 2017, not long after his release, O.J. Simpson made headlines again after being kicked out of and then subsequently banned from a Las Vegas hotel. Reports said it was public intoxication, which would have been a violation of his parole. Simpson said he wasn't drunk, and he sued the resort, saying that his reputation was damaged by the claims. The hotel pushed back, saying O.J.'s public reputation was long established and that they hadn't done anything to further damage it. The case reportedly has not been settled. I'm Ashleigh Banfield. Thanks for joining us.